From New York City, I'm Stephen Shalowitz, and this is the One-Way Ticket Show. Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the show where we explore with our guests where they'd go if given a one-way ticket, no coming back. Their destinations may be in the past, present, future, real, imaginary, or even a state of mind, but once again, the only caveat, there's no coming back. Now, you can listen to all episodes on our website, theonewayticketshow.com. Once again, theonewayticketshow.com. Or you can search for The One-Way Ticket Show wherever you like to download your podcasts. And while you're at it, of course, do rate and review us, 5 stars, of course, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also listen to the show and now view the show on YouTube. Yes, after 13 years, we finally have a YouTube channel. I've posted some of our archival episodes up there. I'll be releasing more of those archival episodes in the coming weeks and months and years because we do have a whole lot, as well as new episodes like this episode of the show. So make sure that you go to YouTube and search for The One-Way Ticket Show. Once again, The One-Way Ticket Show on YouTube, and make sure you also subscribe, you ring that bell, so you never miss an episode, whether archival or one of our new episodes just like this one. And one more point of housekeeping, if I haven't bombarded you enough, do follow me on all social media at Stephen Shalowitz. Once again, at Stephen Shalowitz. Stephen is spelt with a V, and would indeed love to hear from you and also to have you join our community here on the One-Way Ticket Show. All right, as for this episode, our featured guest is Tom Nash, club DJ, author, speaker, and really one of the most inspirational people that I know, and that's why I wanted to have him join us here on the program. Now, Tom lost all 4 of his limbs after a devastating brush with a deadly disease over 20 years ago, and he was just 19 at the time, and he really came as close to death as one ever can. He spent 18 months in hospital, surviving a coma, life support, and having to relearn to walk using prosthetics. And since then, Tom has learned not just to survive, but to thrive. Again, an inspirational story that I really wanted to share with you, our dear listeners and our viewers. Now, today, Tom is a global keynote speaker. You may have seen him, in fact, at South by Southwest, or you may have tuned into his TEDx talk, which has amassed over 2.5 million views on TED.com. If you haven't seen it yet, I really recommend that you tune into that. He's the author of the book, Hook, Line, and Sinner. It was published in 2023 by Penguin Random House, and you can pick up a copy wherever you like to buy your books. And if that's not enough, Tom is also the host of The Last Meal, available on YouTube as well. So he's our neighbor on YouTube, and we like that a whole lot. And with that, we warmly welcome Tom Nash aboard the One-Way Ticket Show, who joins us now in studio on a very rainy and soggy New York afternoon. Tom, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm sorry you got so drenched on the way over.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, well, only the viewers on YouTube will be able to see this, but for anyone who's listening, and by the way, I recommend you do listen because of the immersive experience of the dulcet tones of Stephen's voice. I think you're actually burning money by filming these things because you have such a good voice. But yeah, it's a rainy day here in New York, and I had one of those moments where I get out on Grand Central Station. It starts pouring as soon as I walk out, you know what I mean? Like, it was dry up until then pretty much, and then it just starts pissing down. And I'm walking, it's only a few blocks here, but for some reason, I always get confused on Lexington at 42nd Street, whether I'm going up or downtown. I don't know what kind of an idiot I am, but it's one place in New York that I always muck it up. So I was walking in the wrong direction for a couple of blocks and then went back, right? And by this time, I'm just like, I'm pretty wet, like all my body. And I'm worried because I'm going to rust, you know what I mean? Like, if you look at me. And then I had one of those moments that you see in movies I was going to tell you about, right? Where I'm standing on the side of I think it was like Park Avenue, just down the road here. And a truck just drives straight over a puddle and it hits me. Like, the whole thing, it just drenched me. And I thought, when you're having like a really bad day,
yes,
but then there's like an apex of that day that just, it can't get any worse than this. It's actually kind of relieving because then you think to yourself, well, I can't get any worse from here, so it's got to be getting better.
It's a quintessentially New York experience that you had right there. Welcome to New York, Tom. And if you haven't guessed, Tom is Australian.
Yes, I'm Australian. Yeah,
right by that.
And by the way, it is getting better because now I'm sitting here with you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'm sorry that we didn't have a change of clothes for you.
No, that's totally fine. I'm not sure what it would have looked like. So
All right. Well, next time we'll have to speak to our wardrobe people about that. Okay, and get a change of clothes for our soggy guests. Well, listen. Before I issue your one-way ticket, Tom, I do want you to share with our listeners and our viewers, just for a moment, a bit about the disease you contracted, as I said, when you were 19.
Yeah.
Take us back to that time, if you would?
Yeah, so I was just a regular able-bodied person, just like anyone else, had arms and legs and everything. And I contracted a disease called meningococcal, which is kind of like a meningitis-y type disease, and it causes septicemia. And septicemia, as many of us know, is lethal. And so I was at university at the time, actually, in Sydney, and I went to college, one day, and I'm like sitting at the cafe waiting to go to a lecture, and I just sort of feel a general malaise wash over me, sort of like you have a flu or something like that. And so I decided not to go to my lecture, and I took myself home. I lived on my own at the time. This is back when you could afford to do that as a student. And I put myself to bed, and I fell asleep, and I fell into a really, really deep sleep, but I kept waking up during the night, feeling awful, like I had the worst flu anyone's ever had. I had to drag myself to the bathroom a few times, put myself under hot water in the shower just to heat up because I had chills and all of this. It was just crazy kind of, it felt like a psychedelic experience almost. And then the next morning when I got up, I couldn't stand. And so I had to text my stepsister, and I was like, hey, can you take me to the doctor, because I think something might be wrong. And she immediately came to my place, took one look at me, and it looked like she'd seen a ghost because I had a purple rash that was developing all over my body. Everything had swollen up. I couldn't get my shoes on because my feet had like doubled in size. It's crazy. She took me to the hospital, and I thought I would be out by the afternoon, but I was in there for 18 months because I'd contracted meningococcal. So they induced me into a coma. I was in a coma for a couple of weeks, woke up, and I was in intensive care for a month. And then I got shipped off to another hospital where they told me I'd have to lose my legs first. I was kind of okay with that. And then it got really depressing when they said, oh, we're going to have to amputate your arms, because I was a musician, I was a guitarist, and that was, apart from, just losing your arms is pretty terrible anyway, and a loss of independence. But for me, at the age of 19, not being able to play guitar, I was like, that's a big blow. But interestingly enough, that point was really a turning point for me. I guess a couple of months in, I had this plastic surgeon who, one of a suite of doctors that I had, who understood my dark sense of humor. And he came in one day and he said, look, with the arms, he said, we have to talk about them. I know you wanted to keep them, but at this point he said, you got two options. And I said, what are they? And he said, well, we can amputate them at the elbow. And he said, you can live with prosthetics, and, it's rare, but, some have done it. I'm like, okay, I don't really like that option. What's the other option? And he said, well, you can keep the arms. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, what's the catch? And he said, you'll die. And so, I mean, he was doing two things, right? One, he was sort of, as I mentioned, like tapping into my dark sense of humor, but also he was giving me a choice. Up until that point, everything that was happening felt like it was happening to me without my involvement and no autonomy in the whole process. And he was giving me a choice. He's kind of like, look, if you want to check out, now's your time. Just say no to the operation and you'll die. And obviously I went through with it, and having made that decision was really important for me, because then I was in control. I'd made the decision that I'm going to move forward and try this out with no arms. And so I was responsible for my own rehabilitation and getting back into the world and being independent again, and making use of myself in society. So I think that was the thing that really launched me into what I call my second life now. You know what I mean? Like, you have past lives,
Right.
which I think is generally bullshit, but I have sort of this bifurcated existence where I have the able-bodied me and the disabled me.
The before and after.
Yeah, the before and the after, and
And so talk about your prosthetics, both your legs.
Yeah, so
and
both
then your
legs
arms.
below the
Yeah.
knee are amputated.
Mhm.
And that's usually not a huge deal. Like, I mean, I walk around, I can walk up and down stairs.
Yeah, we were walking down the corridor, and
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
perfectly fine.
Yeah. I can walk usually a pretty fair distance as well, like probably like a mile or something like that before it gets too tiring. And there are good days and bad days, as you would expect. it's annoying because sometimes you'll get like a cut on your leg and then it hurts to walk, or it's I see them as a bit more of just like a hassle than a disability. The arms are way more challenging, right? Because if you think about it, the whole world is designed for people with hands.
Yes.
And so what you need to do is get these prosthetics, these sort of prehensile things that in some way sort of imitate a hand, but aren't a hand. And I've tried those sort of electronic ones and stuff like that, which I don't really like.
Yeah, well, describe for those that can't see them, that are
Yes.
just listening, what you have.
Yes, I've got to keep forgetting. So I've got to keep remembering that some people are listening. Yes, I have hooks. They look very much like pirate hooks, which is actually the title of my TED Talk, The Perks of Being a Pirate,
Yes.
which was just a bit of a joke. But yeah, so there are two hooks on each hook, effectively, that clamp together using a series of rubber bands. The rubber bands hold them together, and then one of them is connected to a cable such that if I push my arm away from myself, it pulls on that cable and separates the hooks. And that allows me to sort of pick things up. So if I want to pick up this cup, I can just do it like that. What I like about them the most, apart from the fact that they look pretty badass, is they're lightweight, right? They're not heavy. They don't require batteries or charging like some of the electric hands do. They're very easy to fix. If something breaks on them, I can just travel with spare parts and stuff like that. And so, look, these were designed like over 100 years ago, but I still think they're the best fit for me right now.
What would be the alternative then? Like regular hand?
Yeah, or
type
there is a
objects?
body-powered hand, which is like it basically doesn't, I mean, the forefinger and thumb pinch together and it's quite cumbersome and you can't really pick things up with finesse. And they're heavy, so they're useless. Some of the electronic hands are compelling, and I think if I had my elbows, I might dabble in them. But the fact that I don't have an elbow joint, so I have a prosthetic.
So where did they cut your arm off? Above the elbow?
Through the elbow.
Through the elbow.
Yeah. And so, which means I don't have an elbow joint, and therefore the elbow joint on this arm is actually prosthetic, right? Which makes it difficult to sort of leverage and lift up what is called in the industry a terminal device, like a hook or a hand, right? And so the heavier you have something on the end of that, the more difficult it is to work with. And that's a huge reason why I don't use the electronic hands. But if there was something that came out that was compelling technology 5 or 10 years from now that some way circumnavigated that problem, I would definitely try it out.
Fascinating. Let's put a pin in this part of the conversation because I want to get back to how you've progressed, really, since having prosthetic arms and legs, and how that has changed your life and also the viewpoint that you have on life and what you share with others. But this would be a good time, Tom Nash, for me to issue your one-way ticket destination of choice. So Tom Nash, if I gave you a one-way ticket, past, present, future, real, imaginary, even a state of mind, where would you go?
Okay. If you gave me a one-way ticket to anywhere, it would be to the year 3,333.
Okay. I've been doing the show for 13 plus years now, and that's a first for the show.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So
I like to appear original on surface
well,
value.
you definitely are an original. I can definitely attest to that. So why that year in particular?
So I'm a big fan of symmetry.
Okay.
As you can tell.
Yes.
I didn't actually need to lose the right arm. I just
you didn't?
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
No, but as you can tell, I don't take half measures. So yeah, I do like symmetry. So if I was going to pick any year, it would have to be symmetrical. And I was going to pick 2,222, right?
Okay.
But that's only really 200 years into the future. And the reason I really want to go to the future is, I used to be the kind of person who romanticized the past a lot. I might have said something like Paris in the 1920s or something like that. I love all the artists from that period.
We have had guests that have shared that.
I'm sure you have. Yeah. It's definitely an era and a place that people tend to romanticize, and I was one of them. But the more and more I think critically about it, I don't think I would ever want to go back to anywhere in the past because you have fewer opportunities. I mean, like the further along we get as a society, the better everything gets for everyone. And I know it's really difficult for people to feel that in the moment, especially if you watch too much news or something like that. You would be forgiven for thinking that things are getting worse, but I think generally as a whole, things get better. Medicine gets better. People are afforded more opportunities. Standards of living increase. Technology increases. And, if we were able to jump 1,000 years into the future, like what's that going to look like? I thought about 500 very seriously, because I was primarily
500 years in the future?
Yeah. I thought about that initially. And one of the things that I think would be a challenge going into the future is you wouldn't be able to understand anyone. Like language would have evolved to a point
How
where.
do you think it would?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, if all you have to do is go 500 years back into the past, and people don't even speak English the way that they do now, right? And the only saving grace could be, as I was talking to Noam Dorman about this last night, and he said, no, there'll be technology that'll be able to convert that for you. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot. Yeah, of course there would be, but that's, 1,000 years into the future, 100%, there would be some kind of way that they can, I think, tap into some sort of a hive mind that knows how people used to speak back in 2025.
Right.
Right.
Actually, I did a little bit of back of the envelope arithmetic here. So we're in 2025. The difference between 33 and 2025 is 1,308 years. Okay.
Okay.
So 1,308 years ago was the year 717. Can you imagine how the world has changed
Oh yeah.
since 717?
And that's sort of like post-Roman Empire.
Yes.
Would it be Dark Ages or?
I think it was the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
It was certainly well before the Middle Ages.
Yeah, and it would be feudal. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
I mean, if you had
you'd be a serf.
Yes, and if you had a toothache, forget it.
Oh,
I mean,
the dental thing, just that would.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't want to go back in time.
Yeah,
I shudder to think
thing.
how they have to pull a tooth out.
Yeah.
So that actually freaks me
Yeah.
out. So I don't blame you for not wanting to go back in time, especially even a place like the 1920s. What would you want to take from our time today to show people then in the year 3333? And what do you think they would make of whatever you were showing them, Tom?
Am I taking it just to show them, or am I taking it because I want to take it with me?
Both.
My dog.
Okay.
And I think it would be on both counts. Obviously, I want to take my dog, but also it would be interesting to see the kind of artificial selection that had happened over 1,000 years, and whether that dog is. I mean, he's an Italian Greyhound.
They're
right?
beautiful.
And will they have Italian Greyhounds in that, or will we have made them something? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's a strange, because dogs change a lot through our selection of breeding them over the years, and I think if we went back to 1717 or whatever you said it was, dogs would look very different.
They would be wolves almost, I would imagine.
Maybe, yeah.
And certain breeds wouldn't even have existed then.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? Because they only came about in the last, I suppose, couple of 100 years. Anyone that you would want to take with you?
My partner.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah, I'd take her.
And is she game for that?
She would probably come with me anywhere, I think, to the year 3333. She already follows me around wherever I go now. I don't know what's wrong with her, but she seems to think I'm someone that,
And we have to give her a shout out. Her name is?
Her name is Lauren.
Okay. Hi, Lauren.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Lauren.
Pack your
She's not going to watch it because she's sick of listening to me talk. She doesn't want to watch,
But she's never seen our show.
She hasn't. That's true. Yeah.
Right.
And she hasn't heard the dulcet tones of Stephen Chalowitz either. So I will be the world's largest proponent of that particular aspect of this show.
Very kind. I appreciate that. Anyone then that you would like to meet then in 3333?
Ooh. I would like to meet whoever the equivalent is of, because obviously I don't know who's going to be around, but there would need to be somebody who was at the forefront of technological innovation. It could be a scientist, or it could be somebody exploring space. I mean, one of the things that I really like about 3333, just as that area of time, would be like, imagine how much we would have explored space. That is a huge priority to me, because it's some of the stuff that keeps me up at night. It's like, presumably in the next couple of 100 years, we may have found evidence for like microbial life within our solar system, maybe on other moons of other planets or wherever. what technology is going to be around to allow us to traverse more of our own galaxy? Possibly terraform Mars. I don't know. Like those are the kind of things that like I would love to know some of that before I check out. But I don't know if it's going to happen before I check out, but it might. In 33, it will. Yeah.
I think definitely we're going to be way into space. I mean, who knows if people are even going to be living on Earth then?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll all be up in space somewhere.
Yeah, I think
And we'll keep
that's
Earth
an
as
interesting question.
And we'll keep Earth as a museum.
Earth, 1,000. What did you say it was? 1,300.
It was 1,308 years from now. 1,308 years from now.
I still think we'll have Earth. I still think we'll have Earth. We might have other, like sort of satellite places, but and another thing that interests me is like how are we gonna somehow harvest energy in the future? Like 1,000 years in the future, like will we have things drawing energy from like close to a star system or something like that, like near our sun that we can transport back? Like how is like all of these things fascinate me.
Yeah, it's a fascinating idea. And then just a couple other bases on your one-way ticket journey. Medical advances.
Yeah,
so
that too.
I would have to imagine you've thought all about that and whether or not science would have created arms and legs that are different than what you've got now.
I don't even think it will be. It'll be so far past that. It's funny that you brought that up because when I was discussing this with Lauren, I said, this is what I think my answer is going to be. And she was like, oh, is it because of the medical advances? I was like, I wasn't even thinking that, but like 2 or 3 people have now asked me that. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't my primary motivator, but I don't think it would be that long even before they can use stem cells to grow limbs, like grow what would have been your own limb, and maybe grow that tissue around like a titanium version of what your bone would have been or something like that. I don't think we're that far off that. So I can't see prosthetics having a future of 1,000 years. I think we'll sort it out a different way.
Yeah, I think within your lifetime, actually.
Maybe. I mean, the technology might develop. I don't think they're going to be doing it commercially. It's a big leap.
Yeah.
But
stay tuned for that.
1,300 years.
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
Does that year, 3333, or sometime in the future, impact you at all? And have you thought about going into the future long before I even asked the question?
I have thought about going into the future. The only way that you can do it, well, I mean, technically we're all doing it the faster we walk, but I've thought about being cryonically frozen. Is it cryogenically? Cryonically? I always forget.
I think it's cryogenically.
Cryogenically. I've considered that. Not that I would ever be able to afford it. I don't even know why I'm considering it. But yeah, that would fascinate me. I feel like I would be. What's that Woody Allen movie? Is it Sleeper?
Sleeper. Yeah.
He gets up and just everybody just really dislikes him.
Right.
That would be me. No, but I would consider that if I had the means to do so. The only thing that I find weird about it is, don't you have to be frozen
while you're living?
Yeah.
Right. It's before you die.
Yeah. So
I don't want to do that.
No. Yeah. I mean, who would ever want to?
Because how do you know, unless you're you have some kind of disease.
Yes.
And you're really ready to check out.
Yeah.
Then it's a different story. Or if you're in a coma or something like that, I suppose then, one might want to consider it.
Yeah.
Or have it in your living will or some kind of document so people can do that. But the only sad part would be that those people that you know and love wouldn't be around.
Unless you could get them cryogenically frozen.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah.
So you certainly can take other people on your one-way ticket journey.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, send us a postcard from the year 3333. Let us know what it's all about.
You want me to send a postcard back in time?
I would love you to do that because I've been collecting postcards since I'm a kid. So I would like to add a postcard to my collection from 3333.
I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, I was mentioning to you, with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who says so many annoying things. And one of them is he was talking about time machines, and he's like, what people get wrong with time machines is they don't just have to go back in time, but they also have to go back in space.
Yes.
Because we're constantly moving. Like not just the Earth, but the solar system and everything. So if you want to go back in time, you have to go back in time and space. which means if you want me to send you a postcard, I need to find out when you were and where you were.
But I'm sure in the year 3333,
Yeah.
people will be able to track me down.
Possibly, yeah. Are you on the national database right now? Like, what's your digital footprint like? How searchable are you?
Oh, I'm very
Are you very searchable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very searchable.
Are you a very private person? Do you keep like, I mean, if I go to your Instagram, is that like a photo of your dog or something?
I don't have a dog.
Okay.
But if I did have a dog, yes, you would find that there.
Okay,
Although
right.
I do love dogs,
Mm.
but I travel a lot, so that's why I
Yeah.
don't have a dog. Actually,
Do you have any pets?
I used to have a cat.
Mm.
And then after, it's a funny story. I actually I wanted to get a cat, and I went to the ACC, the Animal Care and Control. That's the kill shelter.
Oh, okay.
And I
yeah.
found a 13-year-old cat that was there. He was not fixed.
Mm.
They said that he played rough and he wasn't using the litter box. But whenever I went and I opened the cage and I reached in, he nuzzled my hand and I said,
Mm.
something's off here. So I think he's, a good cat. So I adopted him. I immediately brought him to the vet. They checked him out. I then got him neutered. Is it
Mm.
spayed or neutered? I always get it
No
mixed
idea.
up. I got him
Yeah.
fixed. As they say in Singapore, I used to live, I got him sterilized.
Right.
And then he also had a flu, a virus that he got at the shelter.
Mm.
So this is a longer story than it needs to be.
Jeez.
He got he had a virus, so I had him back in the hospital. He was on a drip. They had to pull out teeth and so on. And then he came back to me.
You
And
really
he
rescued
was,
that cat.
yeah, I did. He was 13, and he was the most playful, wonderful cat. He was basically a dog in a cat's body.
Mm.
And I just couldn't keep up with the little guy. And one of my former coworkers said, Stephen, if you ever want to rehome him, I'd be more than happy to take him. And you have to understand that she lived in a big house in the Hamptons, and she used to commute every day. She used to come into the city every day.
Incredible.
She had a dog, and I said, Meg, I think it's time because he really requires so much more attention and so much more space than I can really give him.
Mm.
So he lived another 2 years or so out in the Hamptons.
What? How old was he when he died?
He was about 15.
Wow.
Yeah, a little over 15.
Amazing.
So
I can't believe he lived out his last
in the
year
Hamptons.
in the
Best.
Hamptons.
Yeah, isn't that the best? Isn't that the best?
It's
And then
fantastic.
after that, I was fostering. I was fostering a couple senior cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's but the
Wow.
point is that yes, you would find all of that
Yeah.
on but when I travel, my regular listeners and viewers know, and my friends and so on, know that I love to travel. I travel to places that are a little bit more far-flung, most places that people don't usually go. And so I post all of that on social
Interesting.
media, but I do it not as a case of, oh, look at me in XYZ destination, but it's more of a case of I want to share the place so people can be exposed to some of these places.
What's your favorite place that you've been? Let's not say favorite. Let's say, what's the most interesting place that you've been that you didn't expect to be interesting?
Gosh, I don't know if I can answer that because the places that I go, I find interesting before I even go there.
Right. Okay. So
Right.
it's by design.
It's by design
Yeah.
that I find the place rather interesting.
Mm.
So, I mean, I just got back from Guinea-Bissau in West Africa, but I was in North Korea about 13 years ago, which was absolutely
That would
fascinating.
have been fascinating.
Iraq is fascinating. Libya was fascinating. I love archaeology, so that was
Oh yeah.
a real treat in
Yeah, yeah.
Libya. You name it. Syria is fascinating. One of my favorite countries, of course, is Israel. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny country with just so much to explore and so many layers. So that's one of my favorites.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so
And do you
the whole world is.
do you interview people while you're over there as
Sometimes
well?
I
Or
do.
yeah.
Sometimes I do, or I'll meet them and then I'll arrange the interview afterwards after I get back. I don't usually like to make it too much of a busman's holiday, as we say, because I really like to be able to explore the place, et cetera. But sometimes I meet people that I find fascinating. And so, like I say, I'll interview them afterwards.
Amazing.
So there you
Do you
go.
go on your own?
Yes. Usually
Fantastic.
I go on I love this conversation. Tom, I've done all of this preparation work, and
Yeah,
here
dude.
Tom has taken over the mic here.
I
So
told
I love
you,
it.
I warned you.
I can relax.
I was
We're
like-
recording. We should share with everyone. We're recording this on a Friday, and it was
Yes.
a very long week for me. So I'm more than happy to
Yeah.
to be in the passenger seat for a moment, but I have to get back in the driver's seat for a
Okay,
second.
I'll
but
leave it,
I will answer that. No, I'm happy to answer any of those questions because it depends. A lot of the time, I do travel alone because I like to be in the moment and I like to be in the space, and I like to totally absorb wherever I am. Whereas I find that if I'm with people that I know or with other travelers, you sometimes see the place or experience the place through their lens
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
really having an authentic experience
Mm.
of not having any distractions whatsoever. And I really like that.
Or even making compromises, I guess, about what
Exactly. And also
yeah.
the other thing is if I go to a place, say, for example, that has a lot of museums, and I'm a big museum geek, and I like to take my time in a museum.
Mm.
So for that reason, I don't want it to feel like I'm being rushed by somebody or are they liking what I like, et cetera.
Or you're holding them back from doing something that's
Exactly. So
different. Yeah,
I really prefer really to travel
yeah.
myself. There are places that I've gone with a group, like North Korea, for example, or Libya at the
That
time
that
was a
would have
group.
been advisable.
Yes. But sometimes I've gone with a quote unquote group and it's just been one other person. When I went to Iran in 2007, it was a group of two. I didn't know the other person beforehand, but we got on, as the British would say, like a house on fire. We
Yeah.
became great friends. Same with Guinea-Bissau. The
Mm.
chap that joined me on the trip, or I joined him, or we were on the group together, an amazing guy. Who's been absolutely everywhere. And so we got along great. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah, but when I've gone on a group trip, I've actually made friends on the trip that have become lifelong friends.
I mean, it's going to some obscure countries with small groups of people. It's a very interesting thing to have in common, isn't it? I
Yes.
mean, like, I could see you forging friendships like that really
Yes.
easily because
The
we'll
other-
always
the-
have Libya.
Yes,
you know?
we'll always have Leptis Magna, which is in Libya, by the way. Having said that, though, when you travel solo,
Mm.
the amount of people that you meet along the way is actually quite remarkable as well. I was in Kolkata a year ago, April, and I met one chap there who is from Bangladesh. And we became Facebook friends after that. And I'm actually planning a trip to Bangladesh in November, not to see him,
Yeah.
but I have been in touch with him and I will see him there. So you
Amazing.
meet some just great people also along the way.
Let me ask you this. How do you, when you go out, if you're traveling on your own, if you go to like a cafe or a bar or something like that, do you go out being open to meeting people and is there, like, do you seek that out, which is the first half of the question? And if you do, what are your methods of kind of meeting interesting people?
It really depends.
Mm.
I mean, sometimes you just you're sitting next to somebody and you just strike up a conversation. Sometimes you're in a restaurant and they've ordered something and you're just curious and you ask, "What is that?" I remember that happened to me when I was in Saudi Arabia in Jeddah, which was the first stop. I actually went with a group on that trip, but I arrived early,
Mm.
about 2 days early, and I was able to spend time on my own. And there were two former Saudi Arabian generals. They were retired generals that were sitting at the table next to me. It was a small Yemenite restaurant, and I didn't know who they were. And they ordered all these dishes, and I said, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" "Yes." May I ask what you ordered?" And they explained what they ordered, and they then invited me to join them at their table,
Mm.
and we had the most wonderful, fascinating geopolitical conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the food was sensational, of
Yeah.
course. It was a hole in the wall restaurant. So it really just depends. You know, sometimes you just like to have your quiet time and just play observer. And then other times you really feel like engaging with people, or sometimes people even just come up to you or they sit there or you sit with them. It really just depends.
And I guess it's a completely different calculation. I didn't even think, when you're in countries that, most of the people probably don't speak English or something.
Yes.
So that's its own
That's another
challenge.
factor.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Tom, thank you for giving me a rest so I don't have to do all the questioning. Thank you for being the questioner. We are going to talk about your show,
Sure.
The Last Meal, in
Yeah.
just a minute. So
Yeah.
I know that you're an expert interviewer yourself.
I wouldn't call myself an expert.
Well,
but yeah.
you do a pretty fine job.
I good conversationalist. Let's put it that way.
Yes. But that's what it is. It's the art of the conversation. And that's why I
Mm.
enjoy doing this show. And I've enjoyed it for all of these years because at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. So there you go. Well, one thing that I want to pick up on is we go back to your story and your life after all of that travel talk on my side is you've said before, and that you said in the TED Talk, we all have unique weaknesses we should take advantage of. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that because so many people don't want to admit to their weaknesses.
Yes, I think it's really important that you have a sort of a pretty candid self-audit of all of your strengths and weaknesses, because you can find out what you can leverage and what you need to improve. And I think, for me, I think, having a disability has made me think differently about solving problems. That's been a big motivator. I don't think I'm obviously not the person I would have been if I didn't go through it, but in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what I was attempting to delineate in the TED talk, I think, was, I was forced to do things differently just because I have prosthetics or a disability, and it made me think about like problems differently and approaching them. I use the allegory of like when I was trying to walk up steps straight, like everybody else does, and like looking at the stairs and then walking straight up, and it wasn't working, and I didn't realize why, and it was because my prosthetics don't have ankle movement in them. And so that's what you use when you go upstairs. And so as soon as I turned my body sideways and used my hip instead, I could get upstairs immediately. And that was this sort of dawning realization for me that I had to approach problems from a different angle, sometimes literally and sometimes figuratively, whatever it is. And so the disability has been like reframed for me in my head as a motivator to, achieve things. So it's actually a positive. I see it as a positive thing.
And that translates into other parts of your life then?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when I was a cigarette smoker, you asked me about like my vape when I came in. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I did at the time. And when I first got hooks and I was trying to light, one of those Bic lighters.
A Bic lighter.
Bic.
Yes.
Yeah. And they've got this unbelievable, these things, a tiny little rotary and like a little lever. So trying to do that without a thumb is actually close to impossible. And I was just trying to do it with a hook, like over and over and over again, and like pushing it against the wall and like flicking it. And, it was a nightmare, right? And then I was doing it once, and I think I was holding the Bic in my hook like this, and I tried to do that, and it just projectiled over the other side of the room, and it landed right next to a box of matches, and I was like, matches, I can do that easily. And so I just opened the matchbox and just started striking matches and practicing that, and I became extremely proficient in lighting a match. And that was the moment for me where I was like, I need to stop thinking that I'm trying to use a lighter. I'm trying to set fire to something. So it's almost like redefining the problem set. This is a lesson I wouldn't have learned if I didn't have to try and light a cigarette. And I did this.
Are you saying there are advantages to smoking?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, more than that. But yes, like it's a rewiring of it had been for me, a rewiring of my brain. And I think that's how I frame my disability now. And I think for whatever challenges people have, you can choose the way to look at it. You know what I mean? Like like any kind of adversity that somebody experiences has the potential to make you a stronger person. But it needs to start with you framing it that way, like something that you can learn from it, I think.
We live in such a victim-centric society, and I'm just wondering if you can weigh in a little bit on that, Tom.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I think it's a bit of a problem because in some ways, I think we have created a society that incentivizes victimhood, and that's why people tend to present that side of themselves. So it's kind of understandable, but it's not helping them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's something that we should be aiming for, because it doesn't improve your situation. Do you know what I mean? Like the only thing that can improve your situation effectively is you and the kind of reframing you have of your own life. And if it's always that you're a victim, you will always be,
So at the beginning of our conversation, you were sharing how you got splashed on by, what was it, a truck?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a truck in a puddle. Yeah.
You still get angry though, don't you?
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's things
course.
that really get you
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah, that's right. I was having a terrible morning. But I think what I said to you in the lift when we were coming up is like, sometimes it gets so bad, like a bad day gets so bad that when you hit that apex, you just start laughing. Like that's what happened. As soon as that happened, like I should have been furious, but I just laughed.
But Tom, is that something that can be learned?
Uh,
Because I think so many people,
Yeah.
again, would then walk around like a Debbie Downer
Mm.
or a Donald Downer
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's going to be different for everyone,
Mhm.
right? And I think I actually made some pretty significant efforts to curtail a bad temper
Mhm.
when I was in my 20s and I guess to early 30s, maybe. And when I say bad temper, I just mean, was never a violent person or anything like that, but I would get quite heated in debates and worked up and really intense. And it was just an aspect of myself that I didn't like. And the reason the method I used to get around that was I started doing mindfulness meditation. And it was the aspect of actually being able to uh, notice physiological responses that your body has when you have particular emotional responses, and seeing it almost like just a computer, like you put the input there and that you get this particular output, and noticing it and accepting that that's like a natural reaction that you have,
Mhm.
and then it will pass. And over years of doing that, I've completely calmed down. I rarely get worked up over almost anything now. I think the question that you were asking before was, it sounded a bit more to me like you were saying, have you been naturally resilient always? Or is that something you've developed? Was that a fair
Yeah.
characterization? Okay. So, and that's a very difficult question to answer, because I think any of those types of skills are iterative and they happen very slowly over time. But I think one thing that is necessary to develop them uh, sufficiently, I think, is adversity in some way. I think the more adversity you tend to have in little bits and pieces, this is anti-fragility,
Mhm.
right? Which are you aware of anti-fragility?
Yes.
It's the kind of stuff that I tend to espouse, because I think it's resilience kind of annoys me as a term, because it doesn't really give us anything. Like, to be resilient is like being a rock. It doesn't really evolve or change or grow stronger. So a wine glass is fragile. It breaks when it falls off the table. A rock stays the same. And what you want to be is the opposite of the wine glass, which is something that gets stronger through adversity or challenges or pressure. So a good, thought experiment proxy for this is something like your muscular system, because when you lift weights, your muscles grow, right? So you're putting tiny bits of stresses or pressures on something
Mhm.
to actually build it up. The caveat I think here is, like, you don't want too much adversity. You know what I mean? Like, if it's a complete disaster,
Mhm.
it's very difficult to grow from. But I think if you have tiny little bits of adversity as you go on, peppered throughout your life, it builds up a more anti-fragile person. So I don't think you're necessarily responsible for it, but you're responsible in so much as how you choose to react to situations. 'Cause I think choice is basically at the center of all
Yes.
of it.
What role does humor have in our resilience and in our sense of looking at things positively?
Mm. It can be a coping mechanism, humor. It can also be, I use it as much as I can to make other people feel comfortable with me. So it works quite well for people that I've just met. And if I have any kind of self-deprecating, humor about, what I'm saying in the first few instances, I think they feel more comfortable to ask questions or say whatever they want. They don't feel awkward around me as a person.
And what is the response just generally when
To
because
the
if I'm
hooks and
sit
everything, yeah.
yes, because I mean, as I sit here, I don't necessarily know that you have prosthetic legs, but I can clearly see
Yeah,
your hooks.
that's right. Yeah, people don't pick up on the leg thing as much. They see the hooks. Quite often, it's the first time they've ever seen someone with
Mhm.
hooks, so I understand why they stare at it sometimes. Weirdly, I don't get stared at in New York. The only people who stare at me in New York are tourists.
Really?
Yeah, you can tell, right? Because, like, I think with New York, it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. There's a dude with hooks. Like, of course. Like, this city is just festooned with weird shit. Of course that guy's walking around. Um, so, yeah, and in Sydney, I don't really get looked at, mainly because I've lived there for such a long time, and most of the places I go,
People know you.
People, well, they might not know who I am or anything. I'm not like famous, but they would definitely have seen me like, oh yeah, I saw that guy at the shopping center like last week, the dude with hooks. He sometimes walks around here. And so I think, if your reputation precedes you to an extent, people are less interested.
And how many other Tom Nashes are there out there? I mean, you are unique. You are the only Tom Nash, of course. But I mean, how many others are out there that also have two hooks for arms?
I see. I thought you meant like people with the same name as me, because
No.
there's a dude on YouTube who's like I think he might be Eastern European or something. He's a finance YouTuber or something like that. He's the only other Tom Nash I know of. I don't know how many quadruple amputees there are out there. Not many. It's fairly rare. I know one personally back in Australia who's a bit older than me.
Mhm.
And I think I've heard of like one other online. I don't really know. Yeah.
But with two hooks.
Oh, so no, the person that I know back home doesn't have hooks. He's got electric hands, which works for him because he kept his elbows.
Mhm.
Hooks. Oh, there's a great guy in Brazil, right, called Pedro Pimenta, and he's a quad amputee as well, and he does use hooks. And he actually got in touch with me when he first lost his arms and legs. I think his brother reached out to me, found me online somehow. I don't know. He speaks English, obviously, in Portuguese, and he's a fantastic dude. He actually sort of followed somewhat in my footsteps and became a DJ as well in Brazil. And now I still follow him on Instagram, although we don't talk a hell of a lot. But I think he's opened up his own prosthetic clinic in Brazil.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So
he's a
he
cool
is
guy.
also paying it forward. I mean,
Yeah.
you very much are paying it forward.
I don't think I am.
No, come on. No, you are, because again, you're out there, you're talking, you're inspiring,
Right.
and I don't think anyone can watch your TEDx video without truly being inspired.
That's very nice of you to say.
Yeah.
I don't see it as paying it for. I mean, if it is, I want a refund. I don't know what I'm paying.
You want residuals, is what you're
that's
saying.
right. Yeah,
Well,
I want royalties.
yeah, exactly. Just a couple other bases, because I know you have to go out in the rain again and get
Oh, thank you.
totally
Yes.
soaking
Yeah,
wet,
yeah.
because of course we don't have an extra umbrella here for you.
I don't. As I told you, umbrellas are for suckers.
I
Right?
know. Call me a sucker. I have to carry my umbrella with me. Um, I wanted to ask you though about, on a serious note though, because you were really at death's door.
Mm.
And I would have to imagine that there's a sense of urgency when one is in that kind of a position. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that, as well as how long that sense lasts.
Mm.
In other words, I mean, certainly when you're in the moment, but then does that carry on for any sort of period of time?
I believe that it does carry on because it focuses you and it teaches you a long-lasting lesson, which is not that life is short, but that it can be very short if you're very unlucky. And that can happen to anyone at any point in time.
Yeah.
Obviously some people are more prone to it, depending on what country you live in and all sorts of elements of fortune. But, as somebody was a 19-year-old boy living in middle class Sydney, Australia, overnight can be gone, right? For something, for which I believe at the time there was no sort of prophylactic measure, a vaccine or anything like that. So, it can happen to anyone, and it can happen to you twice. Again, I think to myself, like, yeah, it can happen to me again. And so the lesson I think from that is, make hay while the sun shines kind of
Yes.
thing. Like, don't waste your time doing something that doesn't interest you. I mean, like, especially, those of us who are fortunate enough to live in Western countries where we have so many opportunities. There's so many people around the world who don't even have the choice to be able to do what they want. They've got to do what they've got to do what they have to. And I think, where we have opportunities in this country and in all of the West, I believe, that other people don't have. And we just sit around and complain about it all the time.
And everything is relative, Tom, isn't it? Because, I mean, say, for example, you don't have a lot here
Mm,
in this country. There is still social mobility or the possibility thereof.
yeah.
But if you don't have a lot in this country, it's certainly a lot more than the majority of people around the world have.
Yeah.
So it's really
And
about
that's,
putting it all into
and also,
perspective.
yeah, that perspective that you just put on it is literally just a way to frame it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you can choose to feel down in the dumps and that life, is serving you a cold dish, or you could look at it that way, the way that you just put it.
And say that, hey, I have a
Yeah.
dish and I have food,
Yeah.
right?
But it's interesting that you chose to ask the question about, coming close to death, because that is basically the central point of why I do what I do with Last Meal.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah, let's go there now. So share with our listeners what Last Meal is all about.
So Last Meal is a series where it's a conversation show,
Mhm.
just like this, but it's based around a different question to what yours is. And the question is, if the world were ending tomorrow and you could have one last meal, what would it be? The difference is I actually cook the meal for the guest and then I present it to them. But the topics and themes, it's very much a philosophy show. It's not a food show.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a question that frames your life in a way, because it was a question that I was asking people just socially many years ago. And I would always notice them start to really think, and their life would flash before their eyes. They would think about meals that they'd had, or, grandmother's cooking, or sharing with a partner or a loved one in Tuscany, or whatever it was. They're thinking about their entire lives. And I think death helps you frame life. Like when you're really thinking about the end, that's when you have these huge realizations and you can ask bigger questions. And that was a gift that I was given when I was really young, like 19 years old. And so many people just don't ever have to think about it or confront the idea of it. And so the point of this show is like, okay, let's confront that. How satisfied are you with your life up until now? Do you have any regrets? Like, what's something that you learned when you were, if that you would have learned? What is something that, had you learnt it when you were younger, would have changed the trajectory of your life? Or like things like this, these big questions. And we try to get people that just, you're used to seeing them talk about other things. Like we have Richard Dawkins, right? He's usually going on about either religion or biology or whatever it is. And Neil deGrasse Tyson we've had on. And all of these people, you're typically used to hearing them talk about something very specific, but let's pull back the curtain on really who that person is and what they think about their life up until that point.
That's why I love this show
Yes.
and doing this show, because I can ask them where they'd go on their one-way ticket journeys.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And you get a little window into who they are, really, right?
Yeah.
All right, and people can get it on YouTube.
Yes.
It's available on YouTube.
It's on YouTube and Spotify, I think, but just to go to YouTube, no, I guess Spotify.
Right.
Yeah.
The Last Meal.
Last Meal with Tom Nash.
Right.
Yeah, that's
All
it.
right. Tom Nash. This has been such a wonderful conversation. And
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an
so
honor.
much,
Yeah.
really, for joining us here on the One Way Ticket Show. I hope this is the first of many conversations
That'd be great.
that we indeed have.
Yeah.
And we look forward to having you back on the show for sure. And of course, we'll have info about Tom on the show notes page of this very episode on our website, theonewayticketshow.com. And as I said at the top of the show, also, we're Tom's neighbor on YouTube. Yes, we have our YouTube channel. So go to The One Way Ticket Show on YouTube and you can see this conversation. You can see some of our archival work. More archival work is going to be posted there, as well as new episodes of the show. So don't miss it. Once again, go to YouTube and the One Way Ticket Show. Make sure you subscribe, ring that bell so you never miss an episode. I'm told that I have to say those things, Tom, right?
You say them perfectly.
You know the drill, right?
Yeah,
if you don't say it,
I don't do it.
doesn't
I
have
don't
it.
do a talk to camera thing on our show.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably should.
Well, I mean, I'm
Maybe I
talking.
can get you to do it.
I'd be happy to. Will you
Yeah.
cook me a meal?
Yeah, there you go. That's
Okay,
a
I'll
free
have to tell you-
exchange of trade.
You got a deal. And indeed, like I said, we'll have info about Tom on the show notes page of this episode on our website. Once again, theonewayticketshow.com. And also do follow me on all social media at Steven Shalowitz. Once again, Steven spelled with a V, at Steven Shalowitz. Would love to hear from you. And also, if you'd like to shoot me an email, would love to hear from you as well there. Steven at theonewayticketshow.com. Once again, Steven at theonewayticketshow.com. Do share your one-way ticket destination of choice. Let's even arrange a call and chat, because I'm always up for a great conversation, especially when it's with people like Tom Nash. I mean, how can you go wrong? Meantime, it's a wrap for this edition of the One Way Ticket Show. For the extraordinary Tom Nash and the entire crew, I'm Steven Shalowitz, and we'll see you next time.